Episode 10 of No One Asked Us. We are officially 10 weeks old. Congratulations, Craig. Do you feel 10 weeks old?
Are we talking like dog years?
Yes.
My mind is
dog years.
my mind's full dog right now because I got a little pup running around here.
Yeah. When is your dog going to make an appearance on the show?
He could tonight, but he's downstairs sleeping right now.
Okay.
So.
Okay. This is No One Asked Us. He's Craig Choate. I'm Logan Lee. As I mentioned, we are in episode 10 of the show. Got a few things to talk about this week. For the first time, we're really not going to kick off with Illinois basketball news, although I kind of was expecting to. I was expecting that to be our main story this week, but we'll talk about it here a little later. Nothing's really come to fruition with that. We have some other stuff to talk about. Plus, we have a guest this week. That's exciting. It took us 10 weeks, but we finally got somebody on the show that's not us. So all the listeners and the viewers out there can actually see somebody else or listen to somebody else's voice. So Luis Medina from Bleacher Nation going to join us a little later. We're going to talk about the NFL draft coming up and the Bears and, Bears needs and all that stuff. But before we get started, Craig, how you doing, man? You, as you talked about, you're a dog dad now. I mean, you kind of were kind of already a dog dad, but how's dog dad life been the last week or so?
I don't want to jinx it, but he's been pretty good. Last Tuesday,
famous last words.
I know. Last Tuesday, last week, I think it was Wednesday, whatever day, last week. We went and got a little pup. He's a black golden retriever, black lab mix, born March 5th. So he's almost as old as this show. I think we're a little bit older. I think he's 7 weeks, almost 8 weeks. But yeah, he's black. He's got a little white patch on his chest and 2 white toes on his back paws. We named him Onyx, Onyx.
Like the Pokemon?
Okay, see, someone else told me that, and I was like, I don't know Pokemon. I don't know. I guess I have no idea.
Onyx was a Pokemon. He was long and he had a lot of rocks.
Yeah.
And he had a pointed thing on his head.
I got a picture sent to me, but
okay.
That's all I know. I know there's a Onyx Pokemon. I don't know where we saw it. Probably on just a list of dog names.
Maybe Christy's a Pokemon fan and you don't know it.
I don't think she is.
Oh. Okay.
But he's been good. Big sister Lola, we got a 7-year-old pit bull as well. Has been pretty good with him. She gets annoyed, of course, as most big sisters do with little brothers, but he's been good. It's been fun having a little pup running around. And I just told Christy earlier tonight that I don't know if it was him or just the fact that we've been traveling a lot lately. I am more tired this week than I've ever been. So yeah, I got that going for me, and also got that second dose today. So we'll see how I feel tomorrow. This might not be edited.
Check in with me in 12 hours.
This might not be edited until Thursday or Friday.
Oh, that's good. I should probably mention we are recording this on it's Monday night. We'll hopefully have this up on Tuesday, but as Craig said, that'll be TBD based on his health. He's our producer for this show, so we'll have to see how this goes. But yes, it's Monday night. Currently, I'm watching the Cubs play, losing to the Braves now 5-4. So last night, Craig, was the 93rd Academy Awards, the Oscars. Are you familiar with the Academy Awards?
I've heard of them, yes.
No, you've heard of them. Okay. Well, I want to start the show a little bit talking about that because...
Do I need the hot take music? Like the sizzle coming?
It's not
okay.
This isn't a hot take.
Okay.
It's just... These are things that I probably would have normally tweeted out, but I decided last night I now have a platform where I don't have to tweet it all. So I can actually just speak my mind as to what happened. The Oscars, I knew were going to be down. I knew nobody was going to watch them. The viewership numbers were awful, atrocious last night. Down 60% or something. I knew it was going to be bad. Despite this being a year where so many movies were easily accessible to people. Like they were on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon. Like they were in household. You didn't have to go to a theater or rent them later to watch these movies. They were already there. Mm-hmm. Despite that being the case, nobody watched these movies. So I knew that was going to be the case. Also, it's April. So unless you're paying attention, you don't even know that the Oscars are happening last night because they're normally in February. So I knew that was going to be an issue. When it came to the awards themselves, I felt like it was going to be pretty chalky. Like there was nothing really surprising about it, but they made some decisions toward the end of the show that, and I don't know if you caught anything about this last night. Did you hear anything that happened in the Oscars?
No,
okay.
I have no idea about anything.
Oh, let me just paint you a picture. Okay. And this is going to be similar to our master's discussion the other day, because you asked me, you listed off all these names of people. And it's like, do you know any of these? I'm like, I mean, I've heard of like 2 of them. Well, that's the same way with these movies, but that's not the point. I've already talked about movies on this show enough from 2020. I'm not going to do it again. But the show was moving along pretty well last night. They did this weird, somewhat scripted, somewhat not little comedy music bit with Questlove, who was DJing, and Lil Rel Howery, who just came on because they didn't have a host. So he came on to this little awkward little music bit where he talked to a couple of the nominees and did some stuff. But from that point on, things got a little derailed because after that, they followed that up with the In Memoriam, which at this point, we're already Eastern time, really close to 11 o'clock. So we're already going real heavy. We still have at this point, like 3 or 4 awards left. So they do the In Memoriam, which was totally rushed. They just it was literally like somebody pressed on the fast forward button through this whole thing. So that was weird. And then in traditional fashion, they end the night with Best Picture. Makes sense. Last night, they didn't. So they have the In Memoriam. And then at this point, we know we have 3 awards left. And they come out, and it's already past 11 o'clock Eastern time, and they do Best Picture. So we're like, as a viewing body, people that are paying attention to this stuff, those of us on film Twitter, the speculation at this point was that the only thing that makes sense is that they're going to end the night with Best Actor, giving it to Chadwick Boseman posthumously.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that made sense. Like, if you're going to change up your order and not give your biggest award of the night at the very end, then you better have a damn good reason to do it. So, okay, it's still kind of weird, but I guess that makes sense. His wife or whoever made a, really good speech at the Golden Globes. So we'll end the night that way. So they do Best Picture, and they give it to Nomadland. Not a big surprise there. Most deserving movie of the year for that award, whatever the case may be. And then they move on, have another commercial. Then we go to Best Lead Actress. And that went to Frances McDormand for Nomadland again. So she came up, gave a second speech. And then they go to Best Actor. They have Joaquin Phoenix come up and present because he won the award last year for Joker. And he just kind of acted like he didn't want to be there, which was just kind of weird. Again, at this point, it's like 11:20, 11:15. And as I said, the only thing that makes sense here is we're setting up for this to be Chadwick Boseman. And it wasn't Chadwick Boseman. It ended up going to Anthony Hopkins, who was in The Father, which is the biggest movie that I haven't seen from 2020. Wow. It's really just now available to me for $20. And quite frankly, I haven't wanted to pay that. So I can't really comment on how good he was in the movie. I've heard he was great. But their decision, because I don't think the producers knew who was going to win. I think the speculation was that it was going to be Chadwick Boseman. And that's what everybody was talking about. So they thought, okay, this will be a great way to end it. And then it kind of backfired on them. So, and then Anthony Hopkins wasn't even there to receive his award. Ugh. They had people at Union Station in LA, and then they had satellite stuff, location set up in like London and Paris, and Sacha Baron Cohen was in Sydney, Australia, and there was like 4 or 5 other places. Anthony Hopkins wasn't at any of them. And he had made it public that he wasn't going to be at this award. I don't think he thought he was going to win. So he just didn't even bother to go to any of those locations. He wanted to stay where he was in Wales. So he wasn't even there. So Joaquin Phoenix said in the Oscar goes to Anthony Hopkins. Everybody claps. Anthony Hopkins, the Academy is accepting this award on his behalf, and then walks off the stage, and then the show ends. So it was just like, it was just a kind of a cluster. of a night to end the Oscars. And I've talked about it. I wasn't really all that excited for the show to begin with, just because, as I said, it's April and these movies came out months ago, and I was already over this awards calendar and this movie list to begin with. So and then the way that it ended was just kind of rough. And I don't know. It was just kind of confusing. And those people that, I think the people that were watching it are people that actually watched the movies and cared about the movies, because I don't think the casual audience was watching this year because they didn't care. They didn't watch the movies. Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I know you haven't seen any of these movies. And then we don't need to harp on the awards too much, but the way the whole thing ended was just bizarre and strange, and just a very, technically that was the end of the 2020 movie year. So that was a very 2020 way to end the Oscars.
And it was in person.
I don't know. It was in person. Yep. They did it at Union Station in LA in Hollywood, which was an open air venue. It had a roof, but it was, and they were practicing social distancing to an extent. And for the most part, it was a smoothly ran show. They had a year to figure it out. So they had nobody on Zoom. They said like flat out, like, nobody, we're not accepting any Zoom speeches. So you had to be at either in LA at that venue, or you had to be at one of these other satellite locations. Yeah. And most people were. I think there was Anthony Hopkins and like one other person weren't at one of the places to receive their awards. But the show itself ran fine. They didn't play anybody off, which I thought was strange. They just kind of let everybody go. But again, they had no host. They really had no bit, like no comedy bit, other than that one music thing where Glenn Close came up and did some dance and talked about a song from a Spike Lee movie. And I mean, that was kind of a funny moment, but it kind of, at that point, everything just kind of got derailed. So anyway, that's my not really a rant. I just kind of wanted to get my thoughts out about how the Oscars ended.
That was kind of a rant. That was kind of a rant.
Did I rant?
Yeah, you kind of ranted.
Well,
because I really had nothing to add, so I just.
Okay, well, it's just been built up in me. So, yeah, but I can now officially move on to 2021. I think I've seen 2 2021 movies that are technically of 2021 movies. So I got a ways to go, but I'm excited to get back to the movie theater.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies, 2 years ago today, Avengers Endgame came out.
I saw that.
Is that the last movie you've seen in a theater? Other than Back to the Future, which you saw in a private screening a month ago.
That's what I was gonna say.
I know you don't go to the theater that often. So is Avengers Endgame the last movie you saw in a theater? Be honest with me.
I don't know.
Surely not. It's been 2 years. Although nothing happened last year. So
was Captain Marvel after that?
It was between Infinity War and Endgame.
Okay, so no. I think the last like 5 movies I've seen in theater have been Marvel. So if anything,
Spider-Man was after Endgame.
I don't know if I saw that in Marvel theater. I don't know if I saw that in theaters or stream. I've seen it.
Did you see the Star Wars? Did you see Rise of Skywalker? Did you see
in theaters?
So it's very possible that Avengers Endgame was the last movie you saw, and that was 2 years ago, Craig.
I would put it as more than 50-50 that it was.
So now that you're fully vaxxed, are you excited to go out and do things like obviously you're excited to go out and do things.
Yeah.
Will you be in the theater in July when things start to come out again, when Black Widow comes out, and then we get, probably James Bond, and we get Top Gun, and probably going to go to the theater, but
if there's still distancing, if there's no distancing, probably not. But like, I don't think I'm ready to sit right next to a stranger. But if there's still
right
a
next
little
to
bit,
me,
hundreds of miles away. Yeah, I feel better. I feel better for sure, vaccinated, but I'm still not ready to rub elbows with someone.
Before we move on, we're not going to talk about Falcon Winter Soldier on here, because I know that one half of this show hasn't watched the show yet, which is fine. There's been a lot going on. I am not going to.
I've got a dog now, Logan. I've got a puppy now.
What did I call you earlier? An excuse factor. An excuse factor.
Oh, yeah.
One half of our show hasn't watched Falcon Winter Soldier, so we're not going to have that discussion. But I am going to jump on another pod tonight and have that discussion with my good buddy, Coach Steve. So if you're looking to chat and you listen to my thoughts and our thoughts on Falcon Winter Soldier, we'll have the link to that sometime later this week as well. So
Is it better than Wanda?
It's different.
Yeah, there's like action and like
this feels like a Marvel movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Spaced out. WandaVision, as you did watch WandaVision, that was very much serial sitcom. It's just very different.
Yeah.
If I had to choose which one was better, I would probably say it's WandaVision. But that's not to take anything away from Falcon Winter Soldier, because I thought Falcon Winter Soldier was really good. It wasn't perfect. Neither of them were perfect. They both had their faults.
Is it done? Like series?
Yeah,
or
it was just 6 episodes.
Okay.
There's not going to be a season 2, but the word now is that they're already working on Captain America 4, which will be the 2 of them as well. So no spoiler, neither of them die or anything. There you go. But yeah, so that's what's happening. At some point, I'm sure you will watch that. Loki's the next one.
Yeah.
Although I think Black Widow comes out before Loki. I don't remember the order, but
I'll get to it all. It's just I was on vacation, lot going on right now, but we'll definitely get to it.
It started the same time as the tournament, so we've had you had basketball and you've been traveling, and I get it. I'm not going to give you the crap like I did a few weeks ago about the other show. But as I said, if you do want to hear my thoughts on that, I'll have the link out for you on that later this week. Let's move on to Illini sports.
Drama.
We usually, as I mentioned earlier, we usually start our show with Illini basketball. For the last 10 weeks, that's really kind of been at the forefront of our mind. And, with the season going on, and then, how the season ended, and then the transfer portal and everything that's going on with that. And some news come out last week about the coaching staff that I thought was going to be worthy enough to kind of lead our show again, but nothing has happened yet. Yeah. So it's been almost a week since these rumors started to circulate that Orlando Antigua and potentially even Chin Coleman we're going to be headed to Kentucky to join Calipari and his staff down there. That was the initial report, at least Antigua, and then Chin Coleman. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on some of this timeline, but Antigua was the first name that was thrown around, and then Coleman, and then it sounded like Antigua, but not Coleman. And then it was Antigua. It's a done deal. And then the last I heard was that Illinois dropped a pretty good chunk of money as an offer to keep him at Illinois. And now we don't know anything. Am I right? Is that the order of how this all went down?
It sounds right. I mean, it's been all over Illinois and Kentucky Twitter. So if you do a quick search of any of their names, you'll kind of find what's going on. There's been a lot of good reporting on it from people that can get what they can from what they've got. Long story short is I think Orlando's on vacation right now. And he's coming back this week, I believe. So I think that's why we're in this stalling pattern. And before we get too far into it, I know Illinois fans are like hating Kentucky right now, but that program went through a lot this week. One of their players from this past season, Terrence Clark, he was a freshman. He passed away in a car accident in LA. So on top of Orlando being gone and Kentucky dealing with that, I think it's kind of put an impasse. So thoughts and prayers to the Kentucky program and Kentucky fan base and all that stuff. Terrence Clark passing away. I think he played in like 9 games for him last year. He got hurt. He declared for the draft. He was in LA doing a workout, preparing for the draft with BJ Boston, who was another Kentucky freshman that declared. And from what I saw, I think his car got hit. I don't think he did anything wrong. Again, I read one report really quick to see what happened. I think he got hit at an intersection and that's what killed him. But condolences to all of them. But yeah, Orlando Antigua was at Kentucky from 2009 to 2014 as an assistant under Coach Cal, won a national championship there, and then took the head coaching job at South Florida, where he was for a couple of years, and then came to Illinois in 2017 after his run in South Florida. So he's got the connections to Coach Cal, and I remember when Illinois hired him, everyone was like, he was their big man coach. He was the one that got them And some of these names might be wrong, but Anthony Davis, DeMarcus Cousins, those kind of guys that played at Kentucky were Antigua's responsibility. So reports start to come out that Cal wants Antigua back, and how can you turn down a Kentucky offer that they're going to make him one of the highest paid coaches, assistant coaches in the country? When you hear that as an Illinois fan, you're kind of like, all right, well, I mean, there's nothing we can do about that, but here comes Josh Whitman with his cojones and big wad of cash. And I'm pretty sure reports are that he offered him more than $1 million, which would be the highest paid assistant coach position in college basketball. I've seen a couple different numbers, and I don't want to get specifics because we're not hearing from sources. We're just seeing all these reports on Twitter. But I think that's what I'm taking out of it. If he goes to Kentucky now, I honestly would be okay, because Whitman had the balls to offer him $1.2 million.
Yeah.
I think I saw a tweet that he made like $700,000 or $900,000 as the head coach at South Florida. So even if he's not at Illinois next year, I fully trust Josh Whitman for manning up and saying, hey, you're not coming in here and just stealing our coach for nothing. We're going to try to keep him because he's a big part of this program. And he really is. I mean, we can talk about Adam Miller leaving and Kofi Coburn leaving and Io leaving and Georgie leaving. If Orlando leaves, that's a big hit to the program. So that's what I take from all of it, is Josh Whitman's handling of it and him saying, hey, we're not just going to let you go. Like, we're fighting. And I think a decision will probably come this week, but again, I'm not sure.
There's a lot of other stuff going on that are obviously playing a part in the timeline. But no, as you mentioned, and it's crazy to me. It's not crazy, but it's interesting enough that this is enough rumors and all this stuff about an assistant coach. Which I think is, as I said, is kind of crazy, but I mean, he is obviously a major part of this team and of this program and what they built there. And that would obviously be a big blow if he does leave. I don't really know what kind of, dominoes would fall after that. Who knows if players would follow? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say at this point. We don't really know much of anything. Where, from what you understand, I mean, I know, kind of his background a little bit, but where does Chin Coleman fall in all this?
I think Chin has just made good connections in Chicago, so people want him. I mean, he got Io, he got Adam Miller, and he's got some pull there now after his time here at Illinois. So I think people are wanting to get into Chicago, and they see his success here at Illinois and want him to come join them. He's been linked to a couple different programs, not just Kentucky. There was some Kansas rumors a little while ago for Chin Coleman. So and Chin and Orlando work well together, I think. I think the whole Illinois staff obviously works well together. They're number 1 seed this year, so they're doing something right. And that's kind of it. As much as it sucks to see these assistants, at least names, be brought up. I know none of them have left yet, but I think it's very likely that someone does leave for greener pastures. Right. It means that you're doing something right. Now, it sucks that you're losing those guys, but until Illinois is consistently in the top 10, talked about as national champion, they're going to be a stepping stone job. Even a head coach right now, I know Brad Underwood has said that this is his dream job, but I still see it as a stepping stone job, because if Duke or UNC or if not Texas, Duke, UNC, Kansas, UCLA, if someone comes calling to Brad Underwood from Illinois, I wouldn't blame him for going. I mean, because Illinois is not at that caliber. They don't have the resources that those programs do. So Illinois is a stepping stone job. If Orlando Antigua leaves, if Chin Coleman leaves, there's only so much you can do. Josh Whitman's doing what he can. I would not be surprised if Kentucky matches whatever Whitman offered and Antigua goes to Kentucky. So that's kind of where I'm at.
No, I agree. I think the biggest takeaway that something that I've thought about. I think we've talked about it, is just how well this past season went for Illinois. And you win the Big Ten tournament, you get a number 1 seed. Yeah, you lose in the second round, but I mean that was a successful season. And on paper, after the season ends, it looks like almost everybody could come back.
Yeah.
And you don't really think about losing assistant coaches at the time. Obviously, that's always on the table, especially when you have, names like Illinois has. But at this point, here we sit on April 26th, and there's a long ways to go, obviously, but we don't really know what this roster is going to look like at all.
Yeah.
We don't know who the coaching staff is going to be.
Yeah.
There's so much uncertainty here with Illinois basketball going into the 2021-2022 season.
Yeah.
All we know at this point is that I think they're going to play in a preseason, not a preseason, an early season couple games, at least one game in Kansas City. That's about all we go.
Yeah, they announced that this week. They're in Kansas State, Cincinnati, and I can't remember the fourth team, but yeah.
That was the two that I remember too. So yeah, we're on the same page.
Well, I'm trying to find it. I just sent you a screenshot of the roster for next year as it stands.
Where'd you send it to me on?
I could have swore I texted it to you. Maybe not.
No.
But after doing that, I don't feel as bad as I did a couple weeks ago. I know this is riveting podcasting here, but here it is. Curbelo, Frazier, Plummer, Grandison, and Payne as the starting 5. Hawkins, Hutcherson, Bossmans, Verdonk, Melendez, Goody, Podzimski, Lieb on the bench, and DeMonte Williams kind of unknown right now. He would definitely add some good depth there, but I mean, it's
not a bad group, but
it's a tournament team. It's like a 8 to 10 seed, maybe like the 11 last 4 in bubble team. So that's where I stand. I don't know how much else they can afford to add, because you got to leave a spot open for Kofi. So you can't take too many guys and then be like, oh, sorry, Kofi, we can't take you. Go to the NBA. So that's where I stand for Illinois. We'll see next week's episode if we're talking about an assistant coaching search, which I won't be surprised. But yeah, that's kind of the buzz right now and all the drama going on with Illinois.
Yeah. So as I said, we're recording this on Monday night. So who knows? By the time we even have the show out on Tuesday, there could be some news of something happened. So that stuff is ever changing, and we'll continue to touch on it every week as we do these shows. But as Craig said, that's kind of where we stand right now. Sticking with Illinois sports, moving a little bit away from basketball. Baseball had a pretty big day yesterday. So here, let me walk you through my side of this. I was visiting home for the weekend, and I was on my way back up here to South Bend, and the last few times I've gone, I've been going up through Lafayette. And so I'm just driving along on the little highway, little 2-lane road between Crawfordsville and Lafayette, just heading up north. And all of a sudden, these 2 big buses come driving towards me. They're Fighting Illini buses. So I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what team was up here. And so I get to a stoplight at one point. I look at my phone. I pull out Twitter, and I don't know. I did something and went to figure out. And first thing I saw was Illinois baseball throws a no-hitter at Purdue. Like, oh, well, that's a no-hit winning bunch right there that just passed me on whatever road this is, just south of Lafayette. So Illinois baseball threw a no-hitter yesterday. That's fun. They counted it, right? MLB didn't count Bumgarner's no-hitter.
That's so true. First no-hitter for Illinois baseball since 1985. Their 11th no-hitter in program history, 142-year program history. Thank you to Illini Stats and Notes for the stats and notes. But yeah, it was Riley Gowans, Ryan O'Hara, and Cole Kirschipper. I don't know how to say his last name. Sorry, Cole. They combined for the no-hitter. So it wasn't just one person. It was a combined no-hitter, a 1-0 win. So pitchers duel the entire way. Oh, and it says here, game-winning RBI sack bunt for Illinois. Kellen Sarver, Champagne's own Kellen Sarver. But what I thought really interesting was exactly 2 weeks prior, Illinois got no hit by Indiana. So 2 weeks later, Illinois no hits
favorite.
Purdue. So
Funny.
what goes around comes around, I guess. But yeah, I know Illinois baseball last year had really high hopes and really high expectations. Of course, last year I was still at WCIA, so I was more invested to see what they had. And a lot of the Division I baseball guys and experts thought Illinois could compete for the Big Ten at the top of the Big Ten last year, and then they don't have the season. So they've struggled a little bit this year, but a nice moment for Illinois baseball. And also I saw a tweet today, see if I can find it real quick, that, yeah, for the first time in Illinois history of all Illinois athletics, softball and baseball throw no hitters in the same season. Softball threw one March 13th, Sydney Sickles for softball, and then Sunday, baseball throws theirs. So a lot of good things happening for the Illini spring sports this weekend. Is love to see it.
That's pretty cool. Sticking with Illinois sports, we're going to get to our guest here, Luis Medina from Bleacher Nation, to talk about the Bears here shortly. But before we do that, with the NFL draft coming up this weekend, obviously there's going to be a few, Illini guys that are going to be in the mix. Craig, kind of give us some names to look out for. Who from the Illini might get taken? Where do you think they could end up? What round? Give us a little bit of intel. What do you got?
Well, I'm no expert, but
I think you're an expert.
I think the guarantee Kendrick Green is going to get drafted. Offensive lineman, Peoria product. I hated to see him declare for the draft because he left early. He left Illinois early to declare for the draft. I hated to see it, but he's tested and graded out really well, it looks like, and he's shooting up some boards. Could maybe go second round, but he's probably a third rounder offensive lineman, probably a center or a guard. But I think he is a lock. I think Josh Imatorbhebhe is probably a lock as well. But he's closer to a fringe guy. I think he just has so many intangibles. I don't know if you saw his vert. He wasn't invited to the combine because he's a late round projection, but they had their pro day here at Illinois, and his vertical jump would have broke the combine record of like 46.5 inches or something like that. So, I mean, that's insane. And we saw that at Illinois all the time. He was the jump ball guy in the end zone, or the famed 4th and 17 at Michigan State that converted to propel them to the win. So I think someone could take a late round pick on him, probably early 7th round, maybe late 6th round. And then the other two guys are Nate Hobbs and Milo Eifler. Hobbs, I've seen some buzz on Twitter about how much people like his intangibles and his numbers. He's a pretty athletic kid. I don't know that he'll get drafted, but he'll definitely make a team. And then Eifler, probably not going to get drafted, but will sign. I mean, most of these guys are going to sign undrafted free agent contracts if they don't get drafted. But I think Kendrick Green is a lock and could go day 2. Josh Imatorbhebhe day 3. Nate Hobbs probably day 3 if drafted, and Eifler, he'll be waiting by his phone in the 7th round probably. I'm trying to think as I'm talking here. When was the last Illinois player drafted? Was it Allegretti? I think Allegretti got drafted late.
I think so.
It had to have been the 7th round. Yes,
yeah.
216th pick. He had to be the last one, right? I should have looked this up before the show.
I think so. What year would that have been?
2019.
Yeah,
because no one got drafted last year, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, Illinois went on a run there a couple years ago where they had someone drafted every year. I mean, Levy was bringing in NFL talent, but they had an off year last year. So yeah, there are definitely Illini names to watch out for that will get drafted. Just I'm not sure how many of those.
Well, we'll have to see what happens with the Illini this weekend. But as I've teased a couple of times, we do have a guest this week. we're going to bring in Luis Medina, who covers the Bears for Bleacher Nation. And Craig and I had the chance to chat with him. He's also a fellow Saluki. So we're going to bring him on the show right now. All right. We are now joined by our first ever guest on No One Asked Us. This is a very milestone moment. And we are very happy to have Luis Medina here to talk about the Bears and to talk about the NFL draft. Lou covers the Bears for Bleacher Nation. And so we thought that he would be a perfect guy to have on to kind of fill us in a little bit. You know, there's a couple guys that follow college football and follow the NFL, but probably not as closely as some other people. So Lou, thank you for coming on. First off, happy to have you. Honor. No pressure. As I said earlier, no pressure for you to be our first guest. So I'm excited to have you. But before we start talking NFL and Bears, I believe there was another football game this past Saturday that I think all three of us had some interest in, the FCS playoffs. Lou, did you happen to catch any of that playoff game with Southern Illinois and Weber State?
I cleared my weekend schedule, my Saturday schedule, to make sure that I had nothing going on for that game. I woke up early and did chores. I didn't drink the night before, so I could wake up early in one piece. I got the popcorn machine going at halftime because I'm like, we need rally popcorn, and that seemed to work. Man, I had forgotten what it felt like to feel good after watching a football playoff game. The last two football playoff games I've watched professionally just did not end well for the team that I was rooting for. So yeah, this was nice and refreshing.
Yeah. Craig, did you catch much of the game on Saturday? I know we hadn't really talked about it. I know you were tweeting about it a little bit, but I didn't know if you were able to catch any of it.
Yeah, I watched the first half and then went to a function with my girlfriend's family for the second half, and then I saw the last 2 minutes as well. So I saw the good part there at the end, but I was keeping up on Twitter and getting every update that I could for sure.
Yeah, I was tuned in a little bit. I was at my parents' house. They don't have great internet, so I was trying to keep an eye on it, but I turned it on towards the very end. So I did see, the final, as you said, really about the last couple minutes. So that was really cool. First playoff.
You missed the rough spot, man. That rough.
Yeah. Well,
that start was rough. I was just like, I was getting to a dark place. I'm like, you know what, man? They had to travel, like give them till halftime.
Yeah.
And they got close and they pulled ahead. A really good game. Like that was I know some people have painted it as like this gigantic upset. Like Southern's really good at football, and
they are.
They should get some respect.
Well, did it without their best player too.
Yeah,
Javon Williams.
And there was a lot of talk, that they wouldn't even make the playoffs. And Craig and I talked about it, the last couple of weeks. That, I know a lot of the pundits didn't have them in, but I mean, they were a good team, as you said. I mean, they had 3 losses, but those 3 losses were to really good teams. So they belonged in there, and they showed it. They definitely showed it on Saturday.
Sure did.
First playoff game, was it since 2009? I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
We talked, or 2010. I don't know, whatever it was. 2009.
Too long. This is what it was.
Too long, exactly. So good for the Salukis. Good for Coach Nick Hill. They get South Dakota State on Saturday, who put the hammer down on Southern earlier this season. So we'll have to see if
that's fine. I've cleared my schedule for that too. I was worried that how they would schedule that game, if they'd have to have it on Saturday, if it would it
looks like it's gonna be on Sunday, right?
We got a Sunday 8:00 primetime slot. I love it.
I'm excited.
Couldn't have asked. I'll be recovered from covering the NFL draft by then.
You have a very busy weekend ahead, and that's an excellent transition. It sounds like you've done this before, but that is the reason we brought you on. As I mentioned, you do cover the Bears for Bleacher Nation. So Craig and I just kind of wanted to bring you on just to kind of talk a little bit about, what we can expect to see specifically out of the Bears this coming weekend. And before we even get to the draft part, well, there's all these quarterbacks that are floating around towards the top of this draft. And I know the Bears have been mentioned as a team that could potentially trade up. Let's just get this out of the way now. Is Andy Dalton going to be the starting quarterback for the Bears this season?
In week 1, yes. After week 1, I don't know. There's been lots of chatter about the Bears and quarterbacks really all off season, and whether it's Deshaun Watson or Carson Wentz or Russell Wilson or Ryan Fitzpatrick or Andy Dalton, save for Wilson, a lot of the chatter around guys the Bears have been connected to have been short-term pieces, which to me has always led to me thinking the draft is going to be the time when they make that quarterback move, whether it's a trade up in the draft, whether it's taking a shot in the middle rounds on a guy, maybe it's doubling up, maybe a third and a sixth round pick. They have options. It's just Andy Dalton is a glorified Mike Glennon, clone at this point. Much better than Glennon, much more accomplished. But the options at quarterback range from super intriguing to, do I really want that on my team? So it's a fascinating time to be a Bears fan watching the draft.
Well, I won't accept any sort of ginger slander with Mr. Dalton. I refuse to hear it. My ginger, my gingerness. I can't do it. I have to, I have to go in there and respect, and I might just have to get a jersey. I don't know. We'll just have to see.
I think you have to. I think those are the rules.
I think so too. So as we get into the draft here, and I know you've written a lot about this, about the Bears specifically, what would you say are the biggest needs for the Bears that they need to address this weekend?
I mean, outside of quarterback, they really need to figure out what they're going to do along the offensive line, at wide receiver, and at cornerback. Those are the three big positions for me. Wide receiver, Anthony Miller's basically on his way out. Might as well have a foot outside the door because he has not developed at all. He's had some skirmishes. He had a couple with the Saints last year. He got kicked out of a playoff game. He just hasn't really developed. Allen Robinson is only here for at least just one more year because of the franchise tag. Darnell Mooney looks really nice, but the depth chart beyond Robinson and Mooney is just leaves so much to be desired. I look at that offensive line and I want to give him credit for finding depth later in the year. Alex Barr is a kid from Notre Dame. Sam Musfer, another one from Notre Dame. They really fortified the line down the stretch when the Bears line was just trash. But I don't want to go into 2021 with two undrafted free agents who have minimal playing experience as your starting line, as part of your starting line, protecting Andy Dalton or whoever your quarterback is going to be. So that feels like a problem. Cornerback has been an issue on my radar since really the end of the year when Buster Skrine went down. He's a slot cornerback. When he went down, teams were really picking on the Bears slot corners. And I think I wrote it in either December or January. I think it was in January, right? I just got to a point where I'm tired of watching Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams line up in the slot and bully cornerbacks. So you need to upgrade that third corner position. If NFL teams are going to run three solid starting wide receivers, you got to have three solid starting cornerbacks. Otherwise, you're playing at a disadvantage. So I look at those three position groups as, other than quarterback, obviously, as positions of need. And luckily, offensive line and receiver are really deep this year. So the Bears are fortunate so long as they don't trade all their picks to get a quarterback.
Do you think it's possible they do trade up?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's been chatter about really since the Russell Wilson stuff kind of fell apart, it was just okay, what's next? And a lot of people believed that they would just roll with Dalton, and logically it doesn't make sense. Pace is on the last year of his deal. Nagy has this year and next year. I just can't imagine those two guys going to battle with Andy Dalton as their surefire, no doubt guy. He can start the year, but if that's your option long term, Ryan Pace might as well be, freshening up that resume because he's not going to be long for this team. They're desperate. That's the thing that's been really kind of obvious for a long time now. I mean, I know Schefter's used that term, Rappaport, Jeremy Fowler, a handful of guys. Like, all right, like the league knows. And there was a report over the weekend that the Bears are kind of lurking around, looking to move up. So Ryan Pace is such a wild card. You never know what he's going to do. He works in the shadows. He doesn't let anything leak. He's such a weirdo. So you just never know what to expect out of the guy.
Let me jump in here, Logan.
No,
If-
yeah, go ahead.
If it were to happen, what spot would they jump up to? Because I think 1, 2, 3 are locked. Would it be that 4, 5, 6 area? And what would it take to get up to that?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, because the first team that kind of throw out feelers to see what they could get for a pick was Atlanta. And the Bears were really interested because that would give them first chance after that top 3.
Mhm.
But Atlanta's kind of brought it back in. If the 49ers don't take Trey Lance, I think Atlanta will. He's a guy who impressed them in interviews at the second pro day. But if it's not Trey Lance, they might take Kyle Pitts from Florida, the tight end. Then after that, you're looking at Cincinnati. Cincinnati isn't going to trade out. They're either going to go with Pitts, Penei Sewell, or Jamar Chase or Devontae Smith, one of the receivers. They've got options. They should probably go offensive line. After you get that pick with that team that I just mentioned, the Bengals, after you get past that Bengals pick, that's where it gets really interesting, because the Dolphins pick 6. The Dolphins could easily trade back, accumulate a bunch of picks from a team that wants a quarterback, and then, for example, let's use the Bears. The Bears give up 20 and a first round next year and a first round after that. Miami would have 18 and 20, picks 18 and 20, and they could easily move back into the top 10 and take someone that they like with all this draft capital. Mm-hmm. After that, you've got Carolina, because they're not trading with Detroit. Detroit isn't going to trade an opportunity. They're not going to give the Bears a chance to draft a future starting quarterback. Yep. So that's off the board. After them, Carolina is a team that they're run by really smart analytical people. They're kind of football nerds. I think that's a team where you can say, hey, we'll give you a bunch of draft capital, and they'll take it because they'll do some math that makes it look in their favor. And I don't think they're going to be any good next year, but there's going to be some teams that are going to be real bad. And I think Carolina could use next year's first round, and if they got a pick from another team, move up and get Sam Howell's, the Carolina kid, who's probably going to be QB1 next year. The Broncos are a team that some people think don't like their quarterback situation, but like it enough to stick with it and maybe find someone who can challenge Drew Lock for a spot, maybe make a trade with Carolina for Teddy Bridgewater. They might move back. The Cowboys are a team that wants to move back for some picks. So, like, there are options, but it all depends on what quarterbacks are on the board.
Yeah.
I don't want to bring up memories.
No.
But you can't, if you're going to trade up for a quarterback, you can't screw it up this time.
Correct.
And
you
I'm sure
but it would be preferred if you don't.
Everybody's literally, I mean, you've already talked about, the pace and everything else, but everybody's jobs are going to be on the line at that point. I mean, last time this happened not that long ago, and they traded up for a quarterback and took the wrong one.
Well, the good news is that the process is different this time. Last time, Ryan Pace was basically acting on his own. He sent John Fox to Deshaun Watson's pro day, and they never did anything else after that. They did secret meetings with Trubisky and Patrick Mahomes. Pace really acted on his own. This time around, they've sent John DeFilippo and Bill Lazor, the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach, out to see all sorts of guys. Pace and Nagy have seen in person Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields in person. So unlike last time where everything was like super secretive and on the low, this time it's a different process, which good process hopefully leads to good results. That's usually how I see things.
No, I totally get that.
But you just got to make sure he doesn't act alone again. Like you can't do all that work and then like let Pace run and do his own thing, because he's proven that you can't trust him. It's like when you're a kid and your mom bakes cookies and she says don't take any of the cookies because they're still hot, and she goes in the other room to watch her shows, and you go to take a cookie and the pan's still hot, and you burn your hand, and go, ow! And your mom's just laughing at you because she told you not to do it. That's what pace is. It's just like, all right, Ryan, make a good pick. We've got all these guys who are helping you out. And then Ryan Pace is just like, Kyle Trask. Like, no, don't do that.
So which of these hundreds, it seems like, of quarterbacks that are going to go in the top first round or, top 20 or whatever, which would you like to see the Bears end up with? Obviously, they're not going to end up with Trevor Lawrence, but, who would you like to see in a Bears uniform next season?
It's Justin Fields for me, man. Justin Fields has been my QB2 since this time last year.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who he's athletic. He makes all the throws. He plays with a swagger. He plays with confidence. He was a guy who was leading the charge for the Big Ten to play football, and the Big Ten was just trying to play it cautious.
Yeah.
He had you shouldn't put too much into pro day, but the things, the throws that he can make, he put on display, and it's not like practice throws just to make it look good. It was throws on the run, throws to the boundary, throws deep down the field. The way that he conducts himself is really easy to attach to. Like, he could show up at Hallis Hall and win the press conference and win over a legion of fans immediately. And I think that's important. Like, people didn't gravitate to Mitch right away. It took a little bit. It took training camp when he was out there working after the last whistle with, backup centers and backup receivers, so he can get extra reps, so they can get extra reps. And him, outplaying Glennon in training camp, really helped. But it wasn't until training camp and really the preseason where people were like, all right, we can ride with Mitch. He got booed at a Bulls game. So you have to think about, if you're the Bears, like, when you pick a quarterback, you need someone who people are going to rally around, players and fans. It's an entertainment business now. Can't forget that. So you need someone that fans can rally around, and I think Justin Fields is that. I really like Trey Lance too, by the way. He's a guy that picking him is going to be tough for the Bears because he is kind of inexperienced. He played at 1AA FCS level, but the tools are really loud. Big arm. He's 6'4", 220 something pounds, runs like the wind. Like, that's another guy who's easy to gravitate to. If you like big guys who can throw the ball over the mountains, Trey Lance is your guy. But those two guys, for me, it's Fields at the top, and then it's a level, and then it's Trey Lance. But, like, those two guys stand out the most to me.
I don't want to bring up 2017 too much longer, but is Fields kind of getting the Deshaun Watson treatment where people are overthinking it? Like, I think Watson was the clear pick there at 1 or 2, and I feel like Fields is getting that same, like, he's falling, but I don't know why.
He is, and you know what? It's the way that people talk about Justin Fields. It's the same way they talked about Deshaun Watson, down to some of the one read stuff. What are his limitations? This and that. I think it's really interesting how people talk about Justin Fields as if like he hasn't accomplished anything. This is a guy who won a college football playoff game with busted ribs against Trevor Lawrence, who's going to be the number one quarterback in this class. And that Clemson defense was pretty good. Like, people forget about that. Like, those guys will have players picked in this draft too. So, like, Justin Fields has done some things, and I think some people are scared off by, he left Georgia because, Jake Fromm beat him out. Well, Georgia really doesn't do a good job identifying quarterback talent. They haven't done it really since Matthew Stafford. So him leaving was just like, for him, I thought it was smart. Like, you're going to sit here 2 years because they're going to run a conservative offense, or are you going to go somewhere where you can display your talents? I mean, that's smart thinking. That's forward thinking. I want forward thinking out of my quarterback. So, yeah, I think people are over it, but that happens every year around the draft. I was a victim of it last year. Justin Herbert was a guy that I really liked in college. And then I talked to friends who were like big draft guys, like, well, I don't like this, I like this. And I'd watch a game and like, oh, yeah, I really don't like that. But I think it comes down to this when it comes to quarterbacks. What can a guy do? What he can do. don't try to project what he can do. What can he do right now? Because the things that he can do, you can expect for him to at least be good at that at the next level. I think that was the Mitch Trubisky thing. Like, what was he good at in college? He was good at running. He was good at throwing on the run. You tried to make him a pocket passer, you get what you get. So just don't overthink it. Play to a guy's strengths, and then go from there.
So obviously we've talked a lot about the quarterback situation, and you mentioned the other needs, the lineman and the cornerback and receiver, that type stuff. We can't predict the future. We can't predict what's going to happen a few years down the road. But coming out after we finish this weekend and you're sitting there watching Salukis football on Sunday, how will you evaluate if the Bears had a successful draft this weekend or not?
Who their quarterback is, how they address quarterback, receiver, offensive line, and cornerback. Those 4 positions will tell me really what I need to know. At some point, they're going to take some small school kid that I've never heard of. The bonus points if he has a cool name. Last year it was Kendall Vildor. The year before that, it was Duke Shelley. I haven't figured out. I haven't gone that deep on the All Dame team because I've been really focusing on quarterbacks. There's a kid from Louisville that's a receiver, Tutu Atwell. Yeah, I think that's a guy that I'd like to see just on the name brand alone. There's a cornerback from Syracuse too, Trill Williams. So yeah, you give me a good player with a cool name. That'll happen in the later rounds. A small school kid. There's some real good offensive linemen in this draft. Like, I think one of Ryan Pace's biggest issues is just like he hasn't drafted the players at the most important positions. He hasn't drafted an offensive tackle in the first 4 rounds. He's drafted some receivers, but really more lately. Cornerbacks he just hasn't drafted those big important positions. And the best teams draft those guys every year, and you build depth at those positions. The Bears haven't done that, and that's why they are where they are right now.
If they stick at 20 and don't trade up, don't do anything, who do you think they're going at 20? And maybe a quick couple names for the second and third round.
Okay. If they stick at 20, they might try to trade back because there's a bunch of receivers that they like, and there's a bunch of receivers in this draft. I think a guy like Rashad Bateman from Minnesota is a guy they like. Elijah Moore from Ole Miss, Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle from Virginia Tech, Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle from Oklahoma State. In the second round, that's where you might see the quarterback. You might see Kellen Mond from Texas A&M or Davis Mills from Stanford. I don't know if they like Kyle Trask. They were at his 6th touchdown game against Arkansas, but really nothing since. Rondale Moore's a guy that they've had a bunch of meetings with, and I think is a guy that receivers coach Mike Furry likes. So I think that's those first 2 rounds. If they don't get a quarterback, offensive line and wide receiver are positions that I think they'll target. And Greg Newsome, the cornerback from Northwestern, is a kid they like. I know. Kind of reminds them of Kyle Fuller.
Perfect. Something to look for.
So the Bears have, they have the first, second, and third round. As it stands right now, obviously things can get shuffled around.
8 total picks.
They have, was it 4 picks in the 6th round?
Yes.
Something like that. So a lot to be established this weekend. So we'll just have to see how it shakes out. Before we let you go, though, Lou, I think Craig had a baseball question for the Cubs fans here. So I don't know what the question is. I was just informed of this right before you hopped on. So Craig, whatever you got, let's hear it.
So I thought of this after they fell behind today, and the struggle since 2016. Does winning the World Series in 2016 make what's going on and happened since easier or harder on you fans?
Both. I think it's easier for me because, it's easier for me because, all right, they won the World Series. It's the one thing I wanted. I got to experience that with my mother. Her last game on this planet was Game 5 of the World Series at Wrigley. And I know my last Cubs game is going to be like some dreary April Cup Pirates game. And it's going to be like 27 degrees. I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to be fine. I think the challenge what makes it difficult is that the people who are just win one before I die and I'll never complain again, who are complaining literally all the time.
Yeah.
It just makes it difficult. And it's just like, especially, and I thought it would change this year a little after you had the shortened season, the pandemic, and it's just like, all right, man, like it's kind of just a blessing to have baseball. I was having this conversation with my neighbor earlier while I was cooking. He's a Tigers fan. He's just like, yeah, the Tigers are off to a slow start. They lost a tough game today, but at least it's better than this time last year when we didn't have baseball. Like, I'm just happy to have baseball back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, am I annoyed that the Cubs are a game below 500? Sure. But like, perspective is just like, it's better than like not having, like, wondering, are they going to play baseball this year? So
yeah,
there's challenges. Winning the World Series softens all those blows. So.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I feel the same way. Obviously it's disappointing that the dynasty that was built up, I use that in air quotes, to be what it was said to be back in 2015, 2016, 2017. It's, it's unfortunate that hasn't really been the case. But it's not like the Cubs have been terrible. I mean, there are far worse teams in baseball. Yes, they've struggled and failed to make the playoffs a few of these years and, below 500 right now. But no, I would still say, to answer your question, I would still say, give me that 1-16 and I'm good for a little bit. Because the other thing too is that, yes, there are dynasties and there are teams that win multiple World Series over the course of X amount of years, but it doesn't happen all that often. Yeah. So, I mean, not everybody can be the Giants winning them every other year.
It's hard to win the World Series these days. One of my last great conversations with my mother was we were driving out to go get tacos. There's a great place on California and Belmont. We go get tacos. She's like, was there a time where you didn't think the Cubs would win the World Series? And I said, yes. And she was surprised that I said that. She's like, why? I'm like, well, it's just hard to win the World Series mathematically. I'm like, back when you were growing up, or even back before that, back when grandma was growing up as a baseball fan, all you had to do to get to the World Series was have the best record. Win more games than everyone else. It's simple as that. Then you had divisional play. Then you had to win a round of playoffs, you had to win the LCS, and then you go to the World Series. Then you added, 3 divisions and a wild card. Now you're adding another wild card. The more games that you add to get to that point lowers your odds, and you have more teams, and you have integration. You've got more divisions. You've got diluted talent pools because of expansion. It's it's statistically harder to win a World Series now than ever before. Mm-hmm. Just based on math. So that's just baseball. But we roll on because the game is great. The game is still the game. So in the end, for me, I'm just happy to have baseball back. And I will take that stretch from 15 to 18, really 15 to 20, when they make the playoffs in 15, 16, 17. They have that wild card game in 18. They make the playoffs in 20. Like that's like the best run in Cubs history, really. Like, not even hyperbolic. So
no, absolutely. Lou, we appreciate your time, man. We plan on having you on again. We talked again before you came on. We talked between us, two of us. We thought, is this only going to be a Salukis alum show? But I think eventually we're going to branch out a little bit. But it's good to have you on, man. Thank you for hopping on, talking a little bit of Bears and Cubs with us. You can find Lou at Bleacher Nation. He covers the Bears and a little bit of the Cubs there as well. Lou, been a pleasure. Thank you, and we'll do this again sometime.
Can't wait. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Lou.
Well, we want to thank Lou for coming on. Craig, I was excited to finally get a guest on our show.
Yeah.
We have been, talking about trying to get somebody on. We've had a couple people that we've been kind of eyeing to work on that hasn't really come to fruition yet. But I was excited to get Lou here to kind of preview the NFL draft, talk about the Bears a little bit. It was really spur of the moment. I literally texted him this morning.
Yeah.
And be like, hey man, you want to come on to the pod and talk a little bit? So he's actually been great because he actually shared one of our early episodes on their site on Bleacher Nation. So check them out. They cover a lot of they started as a Cubs fan site. But they do cover the Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks now. It looks like they're gonna be starting a White Sox page at some point too. So check him out. Before we go, talk a little bit of baseball here so far this season. Both our teams, the Cubs and the Cards, kind of sitting around 500.
Yep.
As we record this right now, I'm watching the Cubs play. They're down 8-5 in the sixth. Cubs are kind of been hit or miss. They kind of were struggling to score runs for a while. Then all of a sudden they got hot and scored quite a bit over the course of a few games. I didn't watch a ton this weekend, being where I was and with family and stuff. So I didn't see a ton of Cubs baseball. Nico Horner is back up with the team right now. He started today at shortstop. Javi's got a couple days off. Javi had a rough day a couple games ago. So it's good to see Nico up. I hope he stays. They just got to figure out where he's going to play. Obviously he's not going to be the shortstop every day. So second base is kind of,
he's a second baseman.
Yeah, second base is open. There was talk that they were keeping him down for, whatever the case may be, service time or whatever. Most of it, I think, was a bunch of BS, but they do have several guys that they're kind of trying to mix into that second base spot. So Bodie, Sogard, Horner. So obviously Nico needs to stay up. He's, got a couple hits tonight. So hopefully he can stay. What have you seen out of your Cardinals? I know they were playing the Reds this weekend. My dad was watching that. Those games. What are you seeing out of them?
Yeah, Cardinals got the sweep. They swept the Reds this weekend, 5-5 in their last 10. What sticks out this week is Dylan Carlson. He's batting like .460 over the last 11 games. They moved him up to the 2-hole. I think Friday. I think he was in the 2-hole the entire Cincinnati series, and he went like 7 for 11 or 8 for 11 with a 1.3 OPS. So as he hits a high fly ball right to the pitcher's mound. Cardinals, by the way, are down 1-0 and getting one hit by Zach Wheeler and the Phillies right now. But yeah, that's what sticks out for the Cardinals. They're 11-10, so they're back above 500. Carlson and honestly, the starting pitching. I know I went on my rant last week, 2 weeks ago, early in the season, that I didn't necessarily like the roster makeup. Still don't, but it's getting better because of getting some players healthy. Tyler O'Neill hit 2 bombs yesterday. He came back from the IL on Saturday and is making an impact. But John Gant has been throwing the ball well. Waino went 7 innings, 1 run. So coming around, the bats have kind of cooled off. Goldschmidt and Arenado, the 2 masters in the middle, have kind of cooled. But Carlson, like I said, hitting the ball really well. And we're not seeing as much of Matt Carpenter in the starting lineup, which is always a plus when you don't have his point. Actually, someone sent me a screenshot. Nick Housen from WSIL down in Southern Illinois sent me a screenshot. I think that was sent to him. He didn't do this, but someone went to ESPN and screenshotted Carpenter because his average was .081 and said, "You're above the legal limit there, Matt. We're going to have to pull you over." He's like, I don't even want to look at it. He's got like 2 hits this year.
He needs more salsa.
I don't think that would even help. How about that run, though, a couple years ago? What the heck?
Yeah. He can hit in his day, but his day is well past him. So yeah, I've seen plenty of Cardinal fans that have been celebrating the fact that he hasn't had to be in the lineup.
He's 3 for 40. He's batting .075.
I mean, it's early, but that's pretty bad. So Craig, one last thing before we probably close down for the night. Speaking about baseball, did you watch The League on FX?
Yes.
Fantasy football show. Well, let me tell you why I bring that up. Do you know why I bring that up?
I have no idea.
Because there's some news that came out today around the world of baseball. And I know this isn't really a thing, but I couldn't help but think collusion when I saw that the GM for the Rockies was stepping down, because the man pretty much shipped out your boy Nolan Arenado to the Cardinals in the offseason to just get rid of a bunch of money, and then decided he was done. So I don't know what he had going on with the Cardinals. I don't know if he was a scout or I don't know. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I don't really believe that happened, but that's the first thing that popped into my mind was, wow, the timing of that really worked out for somebody.
Yeah.
Were you shocked by that?
I'm okay with it. I mean, I
Worked
think
out
he's
for the Cardinals.
I think he's great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, man, it worked out for somebody.
Yeah.
Craig, it looks like you have a guest. We have a
Yeah.
second guest on the show this week.
Little guy woke up.
We have. Oh, look at that.
Look at him. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like being held. And
Maybe he doesn't like the camera.
I don't think he likes the light either. It's a very bright light.
Yeah.
This is Onyx.
Hello, Onyx.
He can't hear you.
Clearly, he would react to my voice. Well,
He
that's
just woke up.
He's adorable. You are already becoming quite the dog dad. I'm very proud of you.
I know.
I'm very proud of you. Well, Craig, I think it's about time we wrap things up. We've been going on for quite a while tonight. Anything else?
It's a long episode.
Anything else you want to add before we shut it down?
Nope. I think I'm good.
You think you're good? Okay. Alrighty, folks. I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. And No One Asked Us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, post. Email us your thoughts. Hit us up on Twitter if you got anything. His Twitter's below him. My Twitter's below me. You can also reach us at the pod page as well. Onyx is waving goodbye to us as we speak. We'll be back next week. As I've said before, don't really know when. We're just going to kind of play it by ear and see when we're going to be around. But that's going to do it for episode 10. Thanks to Luis Medina for hopping on this week. Thanks to Onyx for making his first appearance on the show. And thanks to you, Craig Choate. I'm Logan Lee saying ta-ta. We'll see you next week. Bye.